Hello, I am Bert Janssen. Welcome back to the series of short videos in which I explain the book, The Organizing Principle, There Are No Coincidences. In the previous video, I showed how a non-physical activity in the now, in our present, can change a physical situation in the past. Our present impacting the past implies that the future can impact our present. But how does that look like? How do we know that this is actually happening? In an earlier video, I talked about Joseph Banks Rhine and his experiments with xenocards. In one variation of these experiments, subjects were invited to cast cards, and only later Rhine would shuffle the deck with the aid of a machine and draw the cards. Subjects that scored already very well in previous experiments scored again extremely high. Somehow they knew which cards would be turned up, as if they knew the future. This is Marinus Dijkshoorn. Born in the Netherlands, he lived a great deal of his life in New York, where he made a name for himself as clairvoyant. When he was a young boy, still living in the Netherlands in a small village, Dijkshoorn had a vision of a man hanging himself in a barn. Only days later, a man from his village did indeed hang himself in his barn, exactly as Dijkshoorn had seen it. In 1979, the National Security Council of the United States of America obtained a satellite image of a big building close to the sea in the northeast of Russia. There looked to be a lot of activity around the building, which made the NSC nervous. They asked Joe McMonigle, one of the very best remote viewers ever employed by the US Army, if he could see what was going on. Using his extremely well-developed remote viewing skills, McMonigle described in great detail how the Russians were building a submarine with 18 or perhaps even 20 launch pipes for missiles. This could not be true according to the NSC. It would mean that the Russians were building a huge submarine, much bigger than they had ever seen before. Besides, how would they get this submarine to the sea? Through the canal, of course, responded the surprised McMonigle. There is no canal, answered the NSC. McMonigle insisted that he saw a canal and that the Russians would use that canal to bring the submarine to the sea. A few months later, the Russians indeed dig a canal. They open the building, bring out a huge submarine and use the canal to bring it to the ocean. This last case is extremely interesting. Not only did McMonigle see a future event, this event also changed the actions the NSC would take. a beautiful example of the future impacting the now, our present. And that brings me to this man, the Venerable Tenzin Gyatso. Tenzin, born in 1953, entered in 1969 the Namgyal monastery, where he obtained a unique training by many of the great masters. I met Tenzin in person in 2015 when he was making a sand mandala in Sedona, Arizona. During a break, Tenzin sat down next to me, giving me the unique opportunity to ask him some questions. We talked about many things, for instance about the nature of reality. For Tenzin, our eyes are not well equipped to see that reality. He preferred to use his mental or wisdom eye, as so many highly trained Buddhists do. We talked about premonition, about precognition, about remote viewing, and before I realized it, I asked him, "Can you see the future?" Tenzin looked at me, smiled, and said, "Yes." I was shocked and surprised at the same time. The answer contained an immense potentiality, but was also highly disturbing. Being able to see the future means the future is fixed. We are living predestined lives. No freedom of choice. Everything is predetermined. I shared it with Tenzin. "No, no, no," is his immediate response. "You have the best choice thinkable." Tenzin sees my confusion and shares a story with me about a bus leaving the bus station. With my wisdom eye, I see the bus leave, go around the corner, and witness how the bus gets involved in a horrific accident. Tenzin continues with telling what happens in our day-to-day reality. The bus leaves, goes around the corner, and gets involved in a horrific accident. This story doesn't help me at all. It does the opposite. It makes things only worse. But before I can say anything, Tenzin continues. "You do not have to take that bus. You can take the next one. Yes, the future is fixed and you cannot change it, but you do have the choice how to navigate through and interact with that future. The better you know the future, the better choices you can make." My eyes light up, and I thank Tenzin for his wisdom. He bows slightly, gets up, and continues working on his sand mandala. I take a last photo, and with a smile I recognize how Tenzin's mandala is held in place by squaring the circle. The story of Tenzin is a perfect example of how the future can impact the now, our present. The more you become aware of how this works, the better decisions you can make. And remember, you can play an active role. With the help of the organizing principle, you can trigger the future to show itself, so you can make the best decisions thinkable. In the following video, which will also be the last video in this series, I will summarize all I've talked about in the previous 24 episodes. I will summarize what synchronistic events are and how they operate outside the realms of space and time, and what that means. I will summarize the relationship between these synchronistic events and the organizing principle, and how you can use this organizing principle to your own advantage, all depending on your state of mind. I will summarize the importance of shapes and geometries, and especially what role squaring the circle plays in all of this. In short, I will show how the future can be yours. It is all in your own hands. I see you in the final video.